Hey y'all, welcome to Nini's house. Today we're going to make two delicious creamy southern pies. This is Papa's favorite, the buttermilk pie, and my favorite, the sweet potato pie. So let's get started with the sweet potato pie. The first thing you'll need is a pie crust, of course, and you can certainly make your own, but because of my trimmer and the arthritis in my hands, I can't do that anymore. So I just use a frozen pie crust, and these are pretty good. No one has complained so far. You will also need 2 to 3 sweet potatoes depending on the size, 2 large eggs, 1/2 stick of butter melted, 1 cup of evaporated milk, 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon, this is my container, 1/8 teaspoon ground nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon salt, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I make my own, that's why it's in this bottle, and 1 cup of sugar. I'm going to use a hand mixer, but you could use a stand mixer if you want. I'm starting with 3 large sweet potatoes. We'll need about 2.5 cups of cooked potatoes when we're through. And if we have extra, that's okay. We'll just eat them for supper. You want to poke each potato a few times with a knife, just as you would a baking potato. You also want to have your oven preheating to 350 degrees. We're going to place our potatoes on a foil-lined baking sheet because some of the sugars will drain out of the potatoes and we don't want it to get all over the bottom of the oven. We're going to cook the potatoes for about 45 minutes until a knife inserted in the largest part of the potato goes in easily. Our potatoes have been cooking 45 minutes now, and you can tell that they have changed colors. They're a dull brown now, not that shiny orange that they were when they were raw. And you can see that this knife is just sliding easily into the flesh of that potato. So they are done all the way through. Now we're going to set them aside and let them cool completely. You can do this step the day before. You can cool them down and put them in the fridge overnight. They will be just fine to use the next day. While your potatoes are cooling, you'll want to take your pie shells out of the freezer and let them begin to thaw out a little. You can also do this in your refrigerator overnight. And you'll want to par bake your shell a bit. I don't do a blind bake with the paper and the beans. I just use a fork to perforate the shell all over the bottom and around the sides and bake it in the oven at 350 for about 8 minutes. If it puffs up a bit, I just push it back down, and that seems to work fine. Now that the sweet potatoes are cool, it's time to peel them, and they are very easy to peel. The peeling just pulls right off of the potato, just separates really easily. There may be some spots that you need to use a knife on, but mostly it's very easy to take the peeling off. I'm going to do that with all 3 of my potatoes, even though I may not need to use them all. These are recipes that I have been making for my family for about 40 years now, and I am happy to share them with you. I have included both in the description box below. Now that I have all 3 peeled, I'm going to slice them up just to make it easier on my little hand mixer to chop them up. Actually, I think I will only slice half of the last one because I may not need to use it all. Now we're going to start building our filling, and because I have a deep dish pie shell, I'm going to use 2.5 cups of the cooked sweet potato. If you had a regular pie shell, you would only need 2 cups. And you can see that because I used 3 big sweet potatoes, I had almost a whole potato left. Next, I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar. Now this is cane sugar, that's why it looks a little beige, but if you wanted to, you could use half white sugar and half brown sugar, and that would be really good too. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, the half stick of melted butter, both eggs, the 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt, along with the 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. And then we're going to just mix all of those ingredients together. And I did just estimate my seasonings. That's basically what I always do. I'll taste it towards the end and see if I need to adjust them any. I'm going to continue mixing at a medium speed until most of the lumps are gone. Then I'm going to scrape down the edges of my bowl and give it all a good stir to make sure it's mixed well. Now I'm going to add in about 3/4 of the cup of milk. I'm not going to add it all at once in case I don't need it. I'll mix this in and see if I need the rest of the milk or not. And I don't believe I do. I'm going to give it a taste test and see if I need to adjust the spices. And it does need a bit more cinnamon. But it doesn't need any more milk. It's fine just the way it is. I don't want it to be too soupy. Now, another really good stir, and it will be ready to pour into the pie shell. Here's my shell. It's been par baked. It did puff up a little, but I just patted it back down. It's cooled off, and now we're ready to pour the filling in. The filling does look a little lumpy in the video, but it's really not. And if you want yours to be super smooth, you could run it through a sieve or maybe process it in a food processor, but really it's perfectly fine. I'm just smoothing out the top, and then I'm going to put it into my preheated 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes for this deep dish pie, 35 for a regular one. But I'm going to check it at 20 minutes to make sure that my crust is not burning, and if it is, I'm going to put some foil around the edges to keep the crust from burning. And as you can see, I did need to tint the crust. I put it back in for another 20 minutes, but it was not quite done in the center, so I put it back in for another 5 minutes. The way to check for doneness is to insert a knife in the center, and if it comes out clean, then your pie is done. And this one was completely done after 45 minutes. Now let's move on to the buttermilk pie, and this one is really simple. Once again, I'm using a frozen pie crust that has been thawed. This one is a little worse for wear, but because it's thawed, I can just kind of push it back into shape, mold it with my fingers, or you could use a fork to crimp it around the edges if you wanted to. Along with the crust, you'll need 1 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 3 large eggs, 1 stick of butter melted, 1 cup of buttermilk. This is some I had left over in the fridge. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I make my own, that's why it's in this bottle. And a pinch of salt. We're just going to add all of the ingredients to a mixing bowl. Here's my 1 cup of sugar. Once again, I'm using cane sugar. That's why it is this beige color. But any white sugar is fine. I'm breaking up the lumps so it'll be smooth. My 2 tablespoons of flour. And I'm just going to whisk those together to make sure that they are well combined. Then we're going to start adding in our wet ingredients, beginning with the eggs, making sure to whisk them into the dry mixture really, really well. Next, the melted butter goes in, the buttermilk, the vanilla, and lastly, a pinch of salt. Then everything gets whisked together vigorously until it's all mixed well. You could use a hand mixer for this part, but why dirty up all of that when you don't have to? A whisk works just fine. And now it's time to pour the filling into an unbaked pie shell. And you really want to place this pie on a baking sheet because it will make a huge mess in your oven if it happens to overflow. We're going to put it in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 40 to 45 minutes. Checking it at 20 minutes to see if the crust needs covering so it won't burn, and I have decided that it does, so I'm just wrapping some foil over the crust and then putting it back into the oven for another 20 minutes or so. Here it is after 40 minutes. It looks perfect. Let's check and see if it's done. If the knife comes out clean, it's done. So it is. Here are both of our beautiful pies. We did a taste test. They are both delicious. I make these videos mainly for my grandkids so they can have a little bit of a video record of our lives. And I just want y'all to know that we had a contest and Grandpa's favorite is still the buttermilk and mine is still the sweet potato. So it was a tie. Thanks to everybody that watched this video. We sure appreciate it. Y'all come back soon.